Many across the continent took part in celebrations to mark Africa Day yesterday. Colonialism and the boundaries created by Western powers are often the main themes of discussion. But now, African countries also have to deal with climate change and the fourth industrial revolution. Professor Pitika Ntuli is a cultural expert and also joins me in studio, also a historian. Professor, thank you so much for coming in studio.
Thank you to the viewers as well.
Now, when we look at, we celebrate Africa Day on the 25th of May the 25th because in 1963, that's when the the OAU was formed. And then 38 years later, it became the African Union. Can you tell me, Professor, what have we achieved under the African Union? Have we attained common African unity? Have we attained an African identity?
I think there's a very fundamental ideological difference between the people who formed the Organization of African Unities, the Nkrumahs, the Sékou Tourés, the Nyereres. Those people had a very clear vision of where Africa needed to be. Kwame Nkrumah, for instance, spoke up of a common currency for the whole of Africa, a common language for the whole of Africa, and the introduction of an African high command, that when anything goes wrong within an African region, you don't get French soldiers to do it, but you get African people to do it. Yeah. That was a very genuine thing. But we have moved now into the AU as we have it right now. We have not achieved the unity that we require. However, the AU is calling for a 2063 agenda, to say that in 2063, how is Africa going to to be? But then what happened? Then we discovered as artists that in the 2063 agenda that they've drawn, very little is said about culture. And yet Africa is about art, is about culture. That's what it is known for, and arts and culture are the things that unite and bring people together. The whole of the social cohesion is there.
But however, why do you think that's the case?
Because what has happened is that despite the fact that we decolonized, but what actually remained is coloniality, the template of oppression that remains actually in our heads, that we do not see ourselves really as Africans. We are constructs of the Western world, Western philosophies, Western education. Everything about us is that.
Professor, is that not changing, though, with the generation after generation? Don't you think maybe the younger people are mentally, freer mentally?
No, they are getting freer. But if you look at the fees must fall.
Yes.
The fees must fall. Guys realize that the African leadership in total are not doing what they needed to do. That's why they said they wanted radical black feminism, they wanted black consciousness, they wanted Pan-Africanism to be actually on the agenda. They realized that there has got to be a move forward. They are progressive leaders in Africa who are doing clean, powerful stuff, but there are still those that are still remaining lagging, backward, being manipulated by Western powers.
When we look at the African Union now, 2019, surely our enemies are different, or what we're fighting is now different. It's poverty, it's inequality. We're not, the enemy is now shifted. It's a different enemy. And how are we looking at solving these problems?
You see, because we have ceased to be, I think Huma Sikela was right. He said, if we don't teach our children culture, when you ask them a few years from now who they are, they'll say, our parents say, we used to be Africans. And now, let me just give you one example. I am Pitika Ntuli. I am Sompisi. I'm the master of the hyena. Whoever kills the hyena is killing me. Everybody has got their own totem, isn't it?
Yes.
What is that about? That's about ecology. That's about protecting the things. Climate control. All our idioms are telling us about how to protect animals, how to protect nature, how to protect our rivers. We were speaking about those issues long before. But if at all we turned into our own culture and induce every family to live according to their own praise songs, then we would be fighting climate change culturally.
But at the same time, Professor, I agree with you about the totems. My totem as Ndoro is the lion. and yet I find myself having to spending so much money educating my kids. I'm worried now because of my children. Listen, first things first, get the best education possible. It's tough out there. We've got to compete against the world. We're talking about the fourth industrial revolution. It's all about computers. It's all about programming. Surely things are shifting now slightly for us. It's tougher for us now to still hold on to some of those cultural ideals of the past.
That is absolutely there. That's absolutely the tragedy. The Japanese are holding on to their culture. The Chinese are holding on to their culture. They are going back 25,000 years,
yes,
rebuilding their castles, rebuilding the statues.
But did they go through the same trials and tribulations when it comes to, we were colonized for so many years in Africa?
The Chinese were also colonized. The Chinese were also colonized. That's why Mao Zedong and Zhou Enlai had to take a 10-year grand march, being massacred by the Kuomintang of Chiang Kai-shek and the rest of the other people. When you speak culture, people think that we are not thinking forward. We are thinking forward. Our language is changing, and ordinary women selling in the market we will talk technological language in their own kind of an accent.
So what you say, we need to find a way of marrying the new world with our culture, with our old world. Somehow we're not doing that.
Yeah, I mean obviously, when you encounter other people, you learn from them and they learn from them. We have learned a lot from the Western world. We can compete intellectually, artistically, and otherwise with anybody else in the world. But how do we get our individual accomplishments being actually brought? I think the Minister of Arts and Culture, Nati Mthethwa, when he was pushing the issues of social cohesion, creating social cohesion advocates that are going all over the whole place. It's all about bringing us together as African people, irrespective of color, race, sex, creed. That we don't have to be looking back, but we've got to be looking in a sense forward.
Professor, when we talk about colonization and so forth, now we're looking at the continent of Africa. We're seeing a lot of Chinese investment pouring into the continent. What are your thoughts of Chinese investment in Africa?
What happened is that the Russians created what was called the Iron Curtain. They locked themselves behind with the Soviet Union to get their economy straight. The Chinese locked themselves behind what was called the Bamboo Curtain. In agriculture, learn from Tachai, go to Yan'an for arts and culture. They locked themselves up.
Are we not giving our continent away again?
No, we are giving our continent away because we just kind of open up everything. When those people closed their borders and made sure that their economies and their ideas are right, then they can open up to the world. Now with us, we just absolutely open up the world. The only people who do not want are other Africans that we call the Makwere, a Japanese, a German, and anybody coming in as an investor or a tourist.
Everybody else is welcome except ourselves. Thank you so much, Professor Pitika Ntuli, who's your cultural expert and also a historian as well, just talking about Africa Month. What have we achieved and where to for Africa? Thank you so much.
Thank you.